Today, we went over a whole bunch of motions in the prosecution of Donna Adelson. Donna Adelson is being kind of charged as the center spoke in the conspiracy to murder her son-in-law, Dan Markel, who was her daughter's husband, the father of her grandchildren, after an acrimonious divorce from Donna Adelson's daughter, Wendy. Her son, Charlie, has already been convicted. The middleman and the shooters have already pled or been convicted. So Donna seems to be one of the last prosecutions. Her husband and her daughter have not been charged in this case, and many are still wondering, why not? So we are looking at this case going to trial towards the end of September. And because of that, we got all of the motions in limine and the motions to exclude evidence. Donna Adelson would like this to be in a smaller courtroom, alleging that during the trial of her son, Charlie Adelson, members of the gallery were taking pictures of a note passed between Charlie Adelson and his attorney, and that they were signaling to jurors what they thought of the testimony, to the point where a juror actually stood up during testimony of a witness and interrupted and told the court that members of the gallery were signaling. And then they also argued at the end of that motion that no, the courtroom really is too big and we can't see all of the jurors the way this courtroom is set up. So we need to be in the other courtroom. It has a smaller gallery, but also the defense attorneys can see the jury better, which, if that's true, might be the argument that carries the day on moving courtrooms, because if they truly can't see the jury well, then that can be an issue for any of the attorneys in the case. And that might be the thing that gets the courtroom moved. But again, the trial will be streaming, and they said, look, the public will have access to it one way or the other. I think all courts are going to start taking phones when people enter the courthouse and putting them in locked bags like you do if you go to a comedy show or some concerts or federal courthouses, because of issues like this. We also went over the motion to dismiss the case or exclude evidence due to delay. Donna Adelson, through her attorneys, are arguing that, hey, this murder happened in 2014, and in that time, the state didn't preserve evidence of all of Donna Adelson's cell phone records. And by the time they finally charged her, those records are gone and no longer held by the cell phone carrier. And the same with her Sun Pass for the Florida Turnpike. We want to get those records to show that she wasn't at her son's house the night that you say that she was dropping off money as a part of this conspiracy to commit murder. But we don't have those records because the state didn't preserve them closer in time to when the murder happened and delayed in charging her, even though they knew within hours of this murder that she might be a potential suspect. And in the weeks following and years following did become a suspect. But now they're bringing her to trial, and it's just too late because all those records are gone and they could be exculpatory. So the court should either dismiss the case or limit that evidence coming in because the state waited so long to charge her. It's not as if there's new evidence. And they argued quite a lot in that motion that the state is relying on evidence gathered back in 2014, 15, and 16, not evidence that came to light of the state in 2022, 2023. They also argued that her travel to Indonesia was not her fleeing the country after her son was convicted. It was just regular international travel. And so that can't be used by the state as a consciousness of guilt. They can't say, look, she knew that the walls were closing in, so she was fleeing, because there are other explanations for that travel. And she knew she was a target of investigations for almost a decade. And she knew that there were future prosecutions, and she didn't flee when her son got arrested. So she's not fleeing now. She was just traveling. And so we can't allow the state to argue that that was flight, evidence of consciousness of guilt. And the jury can't be allowed to hear that her bouncing out of the US was, in fact, her fleeing. And because she talked so much about that plan to leave the country and why that was their plan B in her jail calls, they also made a motion to exclude a lot of those jail calls, or at least exclude the statements of Charlie Adelson, saying that those are hearsay, that because Charlie's unavailable to testify, because even though he's been convicted, he still has an appellate right, so he can still plead the fifth. He can't be compelled to testify in this case, that he can't be confronted. So there is a Sixth Amendment issue there if the state tries to use Charlie's statements on the jail calls against Donna. So there are some really interesting motions here. I think some testimony that the defense asked to be limited will be limited, but they also said the court limited that in the trial of Charlie Adelson. Same judge on this case and this prosecution, some of the same defense attorneys on this case, and the same prosecutors. So everyone's done that once before and together. So it's really one more time for everyone involved. So the defense attorneys really have a good perspective of how the state's going to present their case, because the state has done 4 other prosecutions with regard to this murder and this, what they're alleging is a conspiracy to commit murder that others have been convicted of. So yes, the arguments about the co-conspirator statements will come up. The jury selection for Donna Adelson starts September 17th. After jury selection, I will be covering this case on the channel. So if you have the Lawnerd app, stay in the loop of when I'm covering that. There will be one more pretrial hearing in early September that I hope to cover as well. So hopefully that'll be streamed and we will be covering that here. For deep dives into the stories that I covered here, you can find them on my YouTube channel at The Emily D. Baker and The Emily Show podcast. I stream every Tuesday and Thursday. The podcast goes live on Wednesdays. And if you want to stay in the loop with everything I'm doing, receive the fastest notifications out there, and get more Law Nerd community, join me at lawnerdapp.com, our free app for iOS and Android.